meeting that is in conflict with the council meetings, and the conflict with this particular council meeting is huge, so I am a committee of one. What will happen here, we'll have to go to the full council for public comments, public hearings as well, since we can't take action in a public comment sense until we have a quorum in the room. So, but I didn't want you all waiting for another couple of 3 hours if we're still in closed session, which we are right now, on the obvious issues of the budget and where we take it. Just an announcement I want to make first. As you know, the Republicans have taken over the House of Representatives, and the question is what happens to Measure R in some people's minds. As soon as that official takeover took place, I called David Dreyer. David Dreyer is now chair of the Rules Committee. He's one of the 3 or 4 or 5 most powerful members of the Republican leadership in the new House of Representatives. And I truly believe when Measure R was approved by the people, it was not a Democrat or Republican. It was not an ideological issue. It was an infrastructure issue that the people in the county of Los Angeles strongly wanted. And even as we were going into this recession, the people voted 2/3 to have Measure R. Measure R is obviously a $30 billion strategy of getting us out of the gridlock mess we're in, of which buses is part of it, pedestrians is part of it, bicycles is part of it, light rail is part of it, subway is part of it, and all kinds of projects. The good news was when we passed Measure R, and the mayor, with a vision of what he thought could make sense, was let's borrow, or let's loan, or let's come up with bonds. Let's come up with something where during a 10-year period we can do what might have taken 30 years to do, so that we can do simultaneously 12 projects. That would be the gold line and the green line and the purple line and the subway to the sea and this, that, and the other. And now I put this call into David Dreyer. David is someone that used to be on my television show when I was in the private sector. And I said, how you feeling about Measure R? And he said that he believes we should say 30-10 is 80-20. Well, what's 80-20? 80 is 80% of the monies for Measure R are local money. 20% could be federal money. So I said, and you, I hope, agree that this is a nonpartisan issue. It's not a Democrat, Republican. It's not the East Side, West Side, South Side. It's the whole L.A. County issue. And he said, I totally agree. And so from now on, I'm saying a 30-10 is 80-20. 80-20 was his idea. I met with our mayor over it, and he also enthusiastically agreed we need to consider Measure R a nonpartisan, bipartisan, not Democrat, Republican strategy. We talked for over 30 minutes on the phone, and I feel very comfortable, and I want to announce it to you as first group of the world to hear about it, is that the Republican leadership has said Measure R is as important to them as it was to the Democratic leadership in the House past, and therefore it is my hope that over the next 10 years they do come up with strategies from the federal government to support the local matching money so we can accelerate these projects and do all 12 and continue to move forward with all 12 over the next 10 years. Senator Barbara Boxer came up with $500 million to get the Crenshaw line moving so that by the year 2016 it's possible we could have that 8.5-mile leg done. So let's keep our fingers completely crossed, but engage ourselves in a nonpartisan conversation about Measure R so we can go forward with everything. That's an announcement I wanted to make. I have, as a committee of one, the ability to move things along, and that's why I came upstairs, and I will go downstairs again into that session when we finish all of this. On consent items, would you take us through it, what we should do on consent? And
the regular agenda has 2 items. The first one is the Board of Transportation Commission's report relative to the 2010-11 non-ambulatory passenger vehicle service rate adjustment in the City of L.A. And item 2 on the regular agenda is the DOT report relative to submitting project applications for the Metro 2011 call for projects.
Do we have any cards on these issues?
We have one on number 2.
We have one card on number 2. Okay, could that person come up? Dr. Clyde Williams, are you here? Yeah, there he is, okay.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA.
Please move the clock. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Also a member of the Sierra Club Transportation Committee. We're quite concerned regarding call for projects because these are, you might say, the fine tuners of existing facilities. Maybe they will debottleneck. Maybe they will provide a whole bunch of things. But the central issue is that they need to have more community input, and unfortunately, we don't have a chance for another 2 years. On the 2011, it's going to be due this month, and it wasn't identified to neighborhood councils and to many others back in September. So all we were trying to do is find out, is there any other way that we're going to have any similar call for projects or Tiger 3 during this year? So we need to get more community input into the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. Does anybody else want to talk about either one or two? So with that not wanting to be discussed, I will take this now and refer it to the full City Council for action when it's appropriate for it to go forward. And Dr. Williams, I would expect you to come back and speak
Mr.
again.
Rosendahl, John White, City Clerk. You're approving items 1 and 2 from the regular agenda? Thank you.
Okay.
That brings us to the special meeting agenda. We have 2 items. The first one is the Rosendahl Zine motion relative to creating the provisions for council members to designate discrete and distinct areas of their council district where people would be allowed to park and sleep overnight.
Okay. By the way, item 2 on the special agenda, which has to do with the subway, the Wilshire bus-only lane, Mr. Carets would like to join me, but we'll see if we get to that point where he can come upstairs and join me. If not, we'll see what we do with item number 2. Yeah. He said, obviously he's downstairs in the discussion. Okay, on item number 1, special agenda item number 1. Let me do a quick comment on this one here. On November 18, 2008, I introduced a motion that requested that the city attorney draft an amendment to 8502, modeling after the Santa Barbara Eugene Initiative, creating a provision for council members to designate discrete areas in their district where they could allow people to park and sleep overnight. At first, I wanted a citywide modification, but it became clear to me that if I focus on my own district, maybe my colleagues who might have some concerns with this would like to see the pilot in my district happen. So we made it district-specific for the 11th district. On November 18, 2009, the Transportation Committee approved, as amended, a request from the city attorney to prepare and present an amendment to 8502 for the pilot project in Council District 11, modeled again after Santa Barbara and Eugene, but designate areas that people would be allowed to park and sleep overnight on both public and private land, including on public streets. Then the issue about criminalizing folks, no person shall use a vehicle parked or standing upon any city street or upon any parking lot owned by the city of, under control of Los Angeles County Department of or living quarters, either overnight, day by day, or otherwise. And that's in the ordinance. In mid-2010, Los Angeles Homeless Service Authorities, that's Lhasa, signed a contract with, and this is just most recently, with People Assisting the Homeless, that's PATH, to develop a program that will move people who live in vehicles in CD11 into transitional housing. The goal will be for individuals who have been living in their vehicles in CD11, enroll in this new PATH program, will not be found in violation of 8502. This would allow these individuals to sleep in their vehicles in certain pre-identified locations while they transition to permanent housing. The Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee of the City Council waived their considerations of this matter. So it's not going to go before that committee. It's going to go from this committee to the full council. For years, as you know, people have been living in their cars and campers, and it has been controversial. especially in CD11, and even more especially in Venice. From the beginning, I have insisted on a balanced and fair approach. Tough but compassionate. On one hand, I supported enforcing of existing laws and introduction of new measures to protect the quality of life in neighborhoods that do not want an excessive number of cars and campers on their streets. On the other hand, I insisted we could not have that enforcement without taking steps and doing everything we could to help people who need help in a matter of conscience and social justice. We need to give people who are forced to live in their cars and campers a place to go. We have aggressively pursued the enforcement angle. We tried to get OPDs, we created OVO districts, and we have increased police presence and cracked down on people living in their vehicles. It is time for compassion, obviously, social services, and social justice. It's time to help those who want to be helped. When we started to pursue OPDs in 2008, I introduced a motion asking the city attorney to draft an amendment allowing people to sleep in their cars and campers in areas designated by local council. Since then, we have come a long way. We are now looking for we are not looking for a blanket change in 8502. We are not looking for a big parking lot to warehouse people. We have crafted a serious and solid social service pilot program with help that will help people get out of their cars and into housing. And so now we are looking at making some discrete changes to the city law, allowing people enrolled in this pilot program to park temporarily in assigned spaces. We will hear more about this, and then we will take public testimony, and then ask the city attorney to come back at a future T committee with a draft ordinance language that allows the program to work. So first, I'd like, before the public comes up and reacts to this, I'd like you to hear a little bit about what we're talking about. So I'm asking Lhasa to come on up to the table and PATH to come on up to the table and talk about the program and how it works and how it operates. Lhasa first, but come on all up, both of you together. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And when I finish the series of questions, then obviously I want the public to comment and react to what you're about to hear. Okay. First of all, tell us what Lhasa is, quickly.
Good afternoon, Councilmember. Lhasa is
Your name first for the record.
Mike Arnold. I'm the Executive Director of Lhasa. And Lhasa is a joint powers authority created between the City and the County of Los Angeles to address and find solutions for homelessness within that jurisdiction.
And tell me, how did you craft this program?
The program design was, there are a number of programs, particularly around the western United States, that have identified that vehicular living is becoming an increased problem. And as a result, they've designed programs that address the ability to help connect people who are homeless as a result of lack of resources, who are living in their vehicles, to social services, to begin them on the pathway back to permanent stable housing. There's a program in Santa Barbara, California that was started about 4 years ago. There's a program in Eugene, Oregon that does very much the same thing, and there's also a program in Kitsap County, Washington that have been working on this issue for a couple of years as well. So the program design built on the best practices from those particular models, and we actually added a component on it that tied it to getting people into and access to permanent housing, because the goal of any of the programs we fund ought to be getting them in that transition, in that trajectory, so that at the conclusion of the assistance, they're back in stable permanent housing.
What if they don't want to participate in a program like that? They just want to live in their car or camper.
Well, you know, this is a program that it's voluntary, but you have to want to move into permanent housing to participate. So if an individual elects not to participate, they wouldn't be a part of the program.
I see. How did you select PATH?
The procurement process, because these are public funds, we went through an RFP process, a request for proposal process, that identified an outline of the program design It identified the funding that was available and solicited nonprofit organizations who have experience in homelessness and homeless solutions to submit program design bids to run the program. As a result of that process, we went through and identified PATH as the primary bidder and have negotiated a contract with them to conduct the program.
How much money did I give from my city funds, from the Venice Surplus Property Fund to this?
Well, I forgot at my opening comments, I did want to commend you on the fact that you identified a program and set aside $750,000 to support this program that really addresses a critical need in Los Angeles. So you've set aside $750,000 that I think should have a huge impact on folks who live in vehicles, who have a desire to get back into permanent housing.
And I might add also, folks, that as a pilot and as a success record happens, I'm going to be looking for additional funds from my partners within the governmental strategies, the county supervisors and their funds and their existence, and anybody else that wants to take us to the next step in making this thing happen. We're obviously going to have to find Section 8 vouchers. We're obviously going to have to create more permanent housing that would have supportive services attached to it as well. I thank you for that. PATH, what is the target population?
Good afternoon.
Tell us what PATH is.
Good afternoon, Council Member. My name is Joel Roberts. I'm the CEO of PATH. PATH started 26 years ago on the west side of Los Angeles to help people who are homeless, living on the streets, in their cars, access permanent housing.
How will this program work?
We, with Lhasa and your office and talking to other cities, this program is a systematic program with 3 steps. The 3 steps are count, care, and connect. We plan to start by counting, by surveying and assessing the people who are living in the vehicles in that area, and developing personal assessments of people in order that we can design plans to help them access housing. The second step is care. We will have case managers and outreach workers on the streets every day, working with these people, helping them understand, helping them navigate the system of accessing public benefits and helping them access housing.
On the first step, have you done the first step? Are you in the process of the first step, and what are you finding so far?
There have been a couple of surveys that have already happened. The most recent is in November, when Lhasa, PATH, St. Joseph Center, and the VA performed a survey in Venice, from the beach on the west to Wall Grove on the east, from Washington on the south to Marine on the north. We found 150 vehicles in the area, and out of the 150, 56 people actually talked with us and helped us fill a survey out for them. With our system, when we find out who these people are, we can actually target them for housing. And let me explain, just with this one survey, we plan to do this regularly. Out of that survey, 39% of those surveyed actually earn more than $13,000 a year. So we know right now that we can help those folks, 39%, access market rate apartments. We can work with landlords, provide move-in support, and actually provide housing retention support. 33% are veterans. We have
Speaking of veterans, is the VA representative Bill Daniels? Come on up to the mic there, Bill. We're going to talk to you in a second, but I appreciate you being here.
We've already been talking, and we are going to work with the VA to access Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Vouchers, called VASH vouchers. And you can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, when you do, I want to know those fast vouchers, because vouchers are worth their weight in gold, and the more vouchers we get, and if the number of veterans are clear, we're looking forward to that leadership from your group.
Just 2 other groups. 26% are seniors over the age of 62. We want to work and try to help them access senior housing. And 16% are struggling with mental or physical disabilities. We want to work with them to access public benefits that will provide supplemental income and housing. It's a system. We find out who's there. We link them to the housing that is geared for them, and we help them navigate the
So
system.
if I heard you right, how many veterans did you say? What was the percent?
33%.
33% veterans, 26% seniors. It can be the same folks?
Yes.
And then 16% with disabilities of
Yes.
different kinds. Okay, keep going. Okay, tell us how this safe parking will work. How important is safe parking aspect of the program? If it's not the central element, what is it in the program?
The main part of this program is to help access people into permanent housing. However, we all know that it's not like we have 100 apartments ready to go tomorrow, so come on, everyone, move in. It takes time. And that's why we have parking lots where we call them safe parking locations, where we will have intensive case management, security, support teams that will work with them. These folks who sign up for these parking programs are going to be like other programs around the city, where they sign client participation agreements that are basically program rules for them to follow.
So in other words, if the end goal is to get people into permanent housing, what is the value of having a safe parking lot to begin with?
Because it takes time to get them into housing. It's not something we can do tomorrow.
I see.
But
How
this
will
is
you
not a
supervise
parking
the
lot
lot?
where we just
Gotcha.
open the lot up and say, hey, come on out here and do whatever you want.
Yeah, and
It's
taking
like,
that point, which is the next question, how will you supervise the lots?
we will have security, case managers, and support staff.
What sort of code of conduct will there be?
It's similar to any program or homeless program that even Lhasa funds. You know, to make it very simple, safety, security is number one priority. So people can't do things in a program if it's gonna harm other people, harm the neighborhood, or harm themselves. And so that's what we gear it around. So basically that's the value.
What sort of neighborhood protections will be in place?
Again, our outreach workers are out on the streets working with people. Again, this is not just opening up a parking lot and saying anybody wants to come in, they can come in. We're working with people that we know are ready to be housed and want to be housed. Those are the people that are coming into this parking lot program. So they're already motivated to be part of this program. This isn't just letting anyone who wants to park their car in a parking lot.
Will
So
there be a hotline number, or will there be a way in which a neighbor who sees something wants to call somebody?
there'll be both a hotline number and an email address. We will have security there on site, and we will have staff. So, again, it's not just the rules of people while they're there, but it's making sure the right people are coming into that program.
When you say, I had said early in this, is that this is the only district stepping up at the moment. We're participating in it because I believe everybody should be treated with respect and dignity.
Yes.
And how they live and where they live are concerns and issues, but we all are each other's brothers and sisters. How will you prevent this program from becoming a magnet, drawing RV residents from all over the city or the region?
We work with dozens of cities around this region, and we know that if you simply provide services, it could be a magnet. You have to provide both. You have to allow law enforcement to secure the streets, as well as allow the community to take care of those who are hurting on the streets. It's a balance. And if you do both of those, it will not be a magnet.
What outreach will you do to the homeless?
We will have 4 outreach workers that will be in vans. They will be out there constantly working with these people. We will know every single one of these 150 people.
What outreach will you do to the overall community?
Part of, I get it, that nobody wants somebody parking their car in front of their home or their business. I get that. So part of this program is not simply just helping people get housed, but it's working with the community to let them understand that there's a system that we're working on to try to help people who are living in these vehicles. And I think, I'm a resident of a city, and all I want to know is, are you doing something? We can't say we're going to have, there's miracles here and it'll be instantly gone tomorrow. But as long as I know that you're doing something, and that's what the outreach will be doing, is we will be explaining to the community, as well as those who are in the vehicles, this is our program, this is what we're doing, here's how it's going. If people start telling us, nobody wants to be housed, we will have a survey that shows, no, we know people do. If people say that there's no housing vouchers or there's nowhere to go, we can explain to them there are. So a lot of this is just communications.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate everything you've said, and I appreciate your organization and what it does, as I do you, Mr. Arnold, and all the great things you've done. The VA, look, I'm a veteran. It bothers me every day when I know that 1 out of 4 homeless, at least, are veterans. It really incenses me to see us in war right now in 2 countries where young men and women go back and forth, and they come out of that war. I know, I was a psychiatric social worker during the Vietnam era and saw 8 or 9 Vietnam vets a day. The folks in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan coming back with all kinds of issues that need to be dealt with. And connecting to VA benefits is a critical part, not only of the quality of life for those individuals that need the support system, but for the overall community and how they integrate back into the community. You're the head of a program. Explain your program and explain how you view this and what kind of support you'll be able to give to us going forward.
Oh, absolutely. But first, let me say...
Your name is?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Bill Daniels. I'm the Director of Mental Health for the VA in Los Angeles. But I want you to know I started my career in the VA as an outreach worker in the homeless program back in the late 1980s. And I did my outreach work in West LA, Venice, the beach, worked very closely with St. Joseph Center, Ocean Park Community Center, Step Up on Second, and other agencies in the West Side community. So I'm very familiar with the issues and have pretty much been at the ground floor of the VA services for homeless. And also, Councilman, I'm also the father of a returning combat veteran. So, who's had to navigate the VA system, so I absolutely understand what those issues are. And the VA is committed to ending homelessness and putting in the necessary resources within 5 years. We're actually down to 4 years now. And by the way, I worked with Lhasa many, many years ago when I was an outreach worker with the cold weather shelter program and, finding the places in the community and know many of those folks very well. But we're committed to ending homelessness and looking at all options and strategies that are available to end this terrible problem of homelessness among veterans. The numbers have been going down significantly. When I first started, the estimates were there were 25,000 homeless veterans, on the streets of Los Angeles. The numbers, vary. Some as low now as 6,000, 7,000. We're going to be participating in the point in time survey that's coming up, I think, the end of the month. The VA will be participating as we've had in the
The
past.
25th, isn't it?
Correct.
We're going to do an outreach.
Absolutely.
I urge people who are listening to this, if you want to be part of the volunteer team,
Absolutely.
that
Well,
contact
please.
my office as
Yeah,
well.
great, thank you. We're absolutely committed to finding and identifying, and we believe the VA is coming to the table with significant resources. In fact, we know through some of our transitional housing programs, but also, more importantly, our Section 8 HUD-VASH. And we are actually receiving more of the vouchers than any other community in the entire country. And there's more vouchers coming for fiscal year 2011. And we're making these vouchers available for this and other efforts where we can move veterans from basically not just from the streets to housing, but streets to a home. And it's not enough just to put someone in housing, but you have to provide the necessary services so that they can continue and maintain that housing. So we're committed to providing long-term case management from the VA to make sure they have access to the care and treatment to stay in that housing. And we're working on other projects, Project 60 and other projects where we're partnering with county mental health, our partners such as PATH and other agencies, so that we can break that cycle of homelessness. I was talking earlier that there's one veteran that I've been working with for 20-something years who comes in and out of homelessness. And I'm viewing, he hasn't been, quote, cured, supposedly, of homelessness. There's still issues that are plaguing him, but one thing is that his episodes of being housed are getting longer and longer and longer, and we're making significant improvements. We're committed to helping every single veteran out there to abandon life on the streets and rejoin society as productive citizens. And you know, we've worked for quite some time on this with your office. You've been extremely supportive to our efforts, and we're committed to continuing those efforts and looking at all options available with all partners to end this terrible problem.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to the VA. I know that Venice Family Housing's in the room, and they're excited about vouchers and monies and building permanent housing especially, and people that will partner with them and work with them on permanent housing. So we look forward to
And I also
direct
want to
support.
commend your office, because you've been very helpful to work with many landlords to come to the table and offer up their apartments for, you know, for many veterans, because landlords have been reluctant. And I want to thank your office for assisting
And there are
in
issues
that effort.
they have brought to me that are compelling, and I know we have a landlord in the room here who also will be speaking, but you're right, because if there are landlords that do have apartments available now, I want to use whatever Section 8 supports I can to get them into that.
And we will
permanent
work
housing.
with those landlords so that they have someone to call if they notice problems and, you know, outside of the regular visits. That's what's absolutely critical to maintaining somebody to call their place a home and want to stay there.
Thank you very much, and all three of you, thank you very much. You can sit up front somewhere to hear the public comment. We're now going to go to public comment reacting to what we've just heard, and then we're going to ask the city attorneys to come up, interact a little bit, and we're going to direct them to come back with a draft ordinance at a future meeting. Could I ask Booker Pearson to come on up, Michael Millman to come up, Diana Tartar to come up, Stuart Oscar to come up? Those four first. If we could move quickly, folks, it would be wonderful. If we could all get up there. Okay, and then the next four will be Susan Millman, Steve Clare, Edie Andis, and Jay Handel, okay? I would like those four to be ready to get up as soon as a chair vacates. So one of you come on up and move in it. And I'd like to limit your comment to 1 minute per person. We just don't have time. We'll start with you, Stuart, since you're in the first seat.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm for streets to homeless. I've been working on this for a long time, so I back this 100%. Some of the questions and comments I have is there needs to be separation between the parking lots and the residentials. I've always said 300 feet, give or take, is what's needed to be done. If you remember from when we went up to Santa Barbara last year about this time, all the places they had were what's the word, where you have separation between the homes and the vehicles, screened. So we need to have that kind of a screening. It really works. I would like to have no parking on the city streets. All the lots need to be through CD 11, not just in Venice. They have to be spread equally all through the district. There's no exceptions for people who are waiting for their permits to live on the streets. And then, when I was on the Venice Neighborhood Council Homeless and Vehicle Dwellers Ad Hoc Committee, we gave a list of some 20-some lots. Could I just have a couple more minutes? Because
A couple more minutes.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, I want to make sure that you're looking at that list of parking lots that we gave you. And then the last comment I have is that we started out with community involvement in this whole process, and what I've noticed, having been involved in that, in the past few months, it's deteriorated, where the people from Lhasa and PATH are doing the work, and that's great. But I remember back in the old days when David Ewing and I were involved in this together. Yeah. I would just like to see the community get more community involvement, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Michael Millman, your name for the record?
Yeah, good afternoon. Michael Millman, Millman. I live in Mar Vista, 2100 Sawtell. Yes, I agree with CD11's councilperson, chief of staff. It is a viable way of life to live in your car in dignity. I respect it, but not on the street. I also am a board of directors of an apartment owner association with 12,000 members. We are your answer. We're willing to step up. We're willing to take vouchers. We're willing to put transitional people in our apartments. We're willing to close our eyes to our normal evaluation process, but we can't underwrite it. So when our industry comes hat in hand to the chamber and says we need some help, we're going to need some trade-offs. There are 300 people living at LAX now peacefully. They're happy. They're secure. Why invent another better mousetrap? You already have LAX, LAX, which is working very well. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to you with the 1,200 Members Association assisting us in location. Thank you very much for that.
My name is Booker Pearson. I'm the past president of Upward Bound House and current board member of the organization that serves homeless children and their families. I'm also the chair of the Homeless Committee of the Neighborhood Council of Westchester Playa. We support Council members Rosendahl's valiant efforts to solve this problem, and we sent him a letter unanimously supporting his efforts to do it last year, which I still have a copy I'll submit to you. We did a homeless snapshot with the help of PATH and Lhasa, and Council member Rosendahl generously gave of his own funds, and we counted over 50 vehicles with people living in them in Westchester Playa. So the problem is not just Venice. It's citywide. It's adjacent neighborhoods. We've got to solve this problem. And finally, I'd like to reiterate that I was in Eugene, Oregon for a whole day. They save $300,000 every year. The police department has documented this. And it's a win, 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 win. The city fathers win, the population wins, and the unfortunate homeless people that get into this incredibly unique and beneficial program win, and and all the other social agencies and the homeowners who would have them parked in front of them win. So my complete support for this, and thank you, Bill.
Thank you for your leadership, too, and what you've been doing for homelessness over the last 20 years. You're a good man. Could I ask Susan Millman to come on up, and Steve Clare and Eden Andes as our fourth speaker here right now, Diane Tarter.
Hi. Thank you. This is sounds like a very viable program. On the other hand, as was mentioned before, it is viable to live in an RV. I live in a camper van. I've had to live this way because was evicted through no fault of my own after 25 years in the same apartment in Venice. I find that I thrive very well, even with heart failure, in a camper van. And I have cooking, and I have refrigeration, and all I need is a safe place to park. Many of us are artists like myself. I'm an organizer for the boardwalk and around the homeless, people in Venice. I'm very proud to be a sweet, kind person, to be able to get so much support and give it. And I don't feel we should force people to go into housing. Much of it will be outside of Venice, away from our community. We artists and musicians, and we are the community. We are the creative force that brings people to Venice. We do not want to be forced into housing outside of the area or that we are not eligible for. Not all of us are eligible for Section 8. Or affordable housing. It just doesn't make sense. Unless you're going to put in housing in Venice for us, we should be allowed to live in our RV in a safe place to park in Venice. That's the way I feel.
Thank you, and I appreciate your feelings, and it is a challenge with what you've just said. Susan.
Yes, I'm a 35-year Venice resident and homeowner, and I support Councilman Rosendahl's valiant effort and his leadership in bringing this program to the fore. In Venice, I also agree with you that to date there has been a law enforcement approach. It is expensive, inefficient, and heartbreaking, brutally pushing people from one jurisdiction to another. And one of the fellows who spoke today talked about homes, because homeless people or people who are not housed, many have deep roots in this community. They have friends, they have medical care,
they have social services, they have been here many years. So when we think of this program, we must consider the importance of maintaining these community ties and keeping our poor people, because at the heart of this is poverty, in our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
And once
for your
again,
comments.
I think your leadership is terrific, and I hope we can have more leaders on the council in this area.
Thank you very much for your comments. Could I ask Jay Handel to please come on up and take this lady's seat right there? Thank you. Sir, Steve Clare.
Hi, thanks very much. Echoing what Susan said, I really appreciate the leadership of the council office in bringing this motion before the whole city council. I think it's really important to stress, and I know you have, that this is a motion to permit the council people to designate. It doesn't require anyone to do anything. On behalf of the Venice Community Housing Corporation, which has housed over 500 people this last year, 101 of whom had previously been homeless, thanks to your leadership and the city of Los Angeles, we're going to be able to house at least 19 more chronically homeless people with mental illness in permanent supportive housing. We look forward to working with PATH, with your office, with other Venice residents to identify locations which are not intrusive to people in the neighborhood, but at the same time are close to services, medical care, case management, and other supportive services that people need in order to transition from homelessness to permanent housing. Thanks very much.
And thank you very much for your leadership, because you are where the rubber hits the road and have been part of the solution for many years, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I'm part of where the rubber hits the road.
Yes,
okay?
right. And put your name for the record.
My name is Eden Andes, and I'm one of the many people that you've lied to over a great deal of time. So, I've heard that we should be cured of homelessness. I find it charming that it's a disease that must be screened by, what was that, 300 feet? Many homeless people, since you started all of this, have been towed, as you know. They have been consistently towed, some of them more than once, which ended up leaving them too broke to get their vehicle out again. So therefore, they cannot belong to your little program anymore. The thing of wanting to be helped, I'm beginning to think I really don't want to be helped. You know, I think I spoke with you in 2007, something like that. And I don't understand why, if people are getting Section 8 housing, that it must then be service connected, that everything is being connected to a service like St. Joseph Center, which I ended up being many years ago told never to come back. Then again, I didn't go there in the first place. I only went there because a man followed me on a bicycle and kept screaming things at me, and then started screaming, you know, it's like, and that was supposedly their person that was supposed to take care of
This is a public meeting, and please play by the rules, and we'll ask you to leave.
Intriguing. And as far as I'm concerned, the people who end up saying quality of life, they don't have one. And as far as I'm concerned, your version of quality of life is the same thing as Jim Crow laws. You want to separate us by 300 feet? Why don't you guys go out in the ocean?
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
No, actually...
Jay Handel.
Yes, thank you. Jay Handel, Chair of the West LA Neighborhood Council, having people living in our district in motorhomes. First, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. As you know, when you first got elected, I came to you and asked you to put up some money for homeless study, as I did when I was the chair of the Homeless Commission in the city of Culver City. So I'm glad to see that this is something that is coming to fruition. As you know, I had a meeting last week with the VA, with some of your staff, some of Congressman Waxman's staff, Zev's staff, and a lot of others. You know, this is not just a Venice issue. I hate to burst the bubble of everybody in Venice, but this is a district-wide and city-wide and regional issue. I'm hoping that the city will allow, through Bill Daniels and the VA, and Bill Daniels has been a good partner over the last couple of decades that I've worked with him, I would hope that the city would allow some of those $750,000 that have been given to PATH and Lhasa to get this program working, to work with the VA in trying to get some of that land on the southern portion as a safe spot for some of the RVs and cars in the transition to getting them into supportive housing, because ultimately the VA has its own police, it has its own hospital, it's a gated area, and it's a good pilot project to help people who are veterans to get off the street and hopefully transition quicker.
Thank you very
into
much for that.
policy.
And
Thank you.
also, the meeting at the VA that did take place, that he was part of, Supervisor Yaroslavsky had a rep, a Congress member, Henry Waxman, and my office were there, and working with the VA is a big plus for all of us, and we do look forward to your working VA with PATH and everybody else. Sue Kaplan, Linda Lux, is that Lois or Lewis? Lois Brower, and David Bush. Please, you can go first.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Bill. I'm Lois Brower. I'm with Peter Knott Properties, and I represent 80 families. And I also want to thank you for what you're doing and the leadership in this. I also support this program, and I have a lot of compassion for the people that are doing this and that are in the situations that they're in. Those people who want help. Absolutely, it's great to have the services there that can help them. I am still concerned about the people who don't want to be helped. I understand they want to live in Venice, and I understand they want to live in their cars. I don't want them living on the street in front of the families. It's not always safe. So in the same things that Stuart had concerns about, I have the same concerns.
Thank you very much for your comments. David, please, your name for the record?
David Bush. Bill. First of all, I'd like to say, Bill, there's a lot of hateful things said about you. I think you're making horrible mistakes, but I love you as a person. That's what Venice is about. We love people here. We don't hate people in Venice. And unfortunately, Bill, what I want to say to this committee, Councilman Ellicott and the rest of you who are voting on this, is do not grant Bill the ability to be the czar of who gets to live in their vehicle in Venice. That's what he's asking for, and he doesn't deserve that. This proposal is in the wrong committee. This should be in a civil rights committee, because what is going on in Venice is a hate campaign directed against homeless people and artists and socialists. Most of the folks on the boardwalk who are creative and created the largest tourist attraction in Los Angeles, created it out of their alternative lifestyles, their alternative politics. I'm a socialist. I'm not service resistant, I'm injustice resistant. You can cut me off for a minute. That's all I get?
Go ahead, make your final comment on it.
This is in the wrong committee. I ask all of you on this committee to take a look at the Yo Venice website. It's a website that Bill Rosendahl aligns himself with. The people who post on it, he refuses to denounce it. We have 3 nights a week, KFI, the largest AM radio station in Southern California, spending all their time addressing 14 million people, and every other word that comes out of their mouth when they talk about the homeless in Venice is child molester, defecation, and urination. And I think if every other word that came out of their mouth, if they were talking about gay issues or Jewish issues or black issues or Muslim issues or even white person issues, was child molester, defecator, urinator, transient, scumbag, you all would refer this to the County Human Relations Commissions. This is not the time to grant Bill Rosendahl, a man who's facilitating a hate campaign in Venice against the homeless on behalf of developers who want to cut the number of poor people in Venice by 2/3 and destroy the socialist nature of Venice. Bill Rosendahl is a Democrat, I'm a socialist.
Thank you very much.
And he hates socialism.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you for the extra time.
It's my pleasure. Linda Lux.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Linda Lux. I'm the president of the Venice Neighborhood Council. And as you know, Venice Neighborhood Council has taken an active role in moving this issue forward. We're very happy to be here today to hear more about and move along the concept of the Vehicles to Homes program. We took a position on this in September of '09. Again, most recently in December of 2010. We had hoped that the overheight vehicle ordinance and the Streets to Homes or Vehicles to Homes programs would be implemented simultaneously. That has been our desire. It hasn't happened that way. So all I can tell you is we want to urge you to move forward with all due haste to implement this part of the carrot and stick program. We've been very heavy on the stick. This is time for the carrot. Venice is frustrated, but we're compassionate. This is a citywide program, as you've heard. We're looking forward to the CD11 pilot program so that we can be a model for the rest of the city, the rest of the country, and show what can be done in a compassionate way for the people that live within us, within our communities.
Thank you very much, and sorry for your loss of your mother last week. Appreciate you very much and your leadership in Venice. Sue Kaplan.
Sue Kaplan. I'm a 17-year resident of Venice, 10 years of being a homeowner. I don't have much time for my prepared, but I'm just going to say we have been spending a lot of time searching for solutions or a solution, and I don't think it's going to be found in one solution, the solution, as some think. It has to be, the problem of the homeless is more complex and vast, and I don't mean to demonize them or characterize them with some, as some has said, just let us know how they felt, but it needs a multi-pronged effort. And you have been searching for these multi-prongs, and amending 8502 is just one of them. And it's vital part. If we don't have that, the Streets to Home, Vehicle to Home movement can't move forward. And if we can't move forward, then we're going to be exactly in the same place where we are today, with nobody happy and nothing better. So please, convince your fellow colleagues on the committee to amend 8502. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you both, all three of you, for who had just stayed there for that moment. David Ewing, please, Dennis Hathaway, and Marie Hammond. Is there anybody else who wanted to talk on this issue who hasn't filled out a card? I'm going to make sure I got everybody's cards up here. And we'll start with Dennis Hathaway.
Thank you very much. I'm Dennis Hathaway. I'm a Venice resident and homeowner. Almost 5 years ago, I was asked by the president of the Venice Neighborhood Council to chair an ad hoc committee to study this problem. And even though I'm no longer involved with that, I am very, very happy to see this process has come to this point. I hope that your colleagues will support this, and I think it will be a great thing for the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your comments, and I do also hope my colleagues will support me in doing this. David Ewing.
Hi, I'm David Ewing. I'm a 34-year Venice resident and homeowner. I want to support this change to 8502. I think it's extremely important. It's crucial. The hope was originally that this Vehicles to Homes program would be rolled out simultaneously with the stick side, the enforcement. That hasn't happened. That's resulted in a couple of problems. The population has changed before it was surveyed, so we don't. It's a bit awkward. I wanted to address a couple of things. I agree with Stuart Oscars. We need to have protection for the communities, for the neighborhoods. I would take little issue with what he said about a 300-foot minimum. In Santa Barbara, that minimum is 50 feet from the edge of the lot, and that seems to work for them. Also, the coercive, there's a coercive element to this program that we're instituting here, which is anybody who wants to take advantage of the parking has to take the services. And in Santa Barbara, they don't do that, and they are able to run their program much cheaper that way. And they find that by building trust with the people who are part of the program, they come to the services. And when they come of their own accord, they're motivated. If they're just taking the services to get the parking space, that's a different dynamic.
Appreciate that, and I look forward to you talking to PATH about that in more detail.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Yes, my name is Marie Hammond. I've been a Venice resident for over 20 years. I can support the safe parking program. I think we do need to find homes for these people. I would like to see them approximately 300 feet from residences, so I think that's important. And I don't want to see any RVs parked on the street. That is very important to the Venice residents. And I would also like to see all of these lots distributed equally in Council District 11, and I'd like to see the VA take some responsibility. I think the VA owes it to many of these people, and they have that wonderful grounds in Brentwood, which I believe is in CD 11. One question I'd like to ask, Bill, is what are the amendments that you're proposing to 8502? It was my understanding the meeting today was about that, and it's pretty difficult to make comments or to present anything to anyone if we really don't have any specifics. So could you please tell us what you're considering? Thank you.
Sure, that'll happen in the next part of the program here. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much for that. I appreciate all the public comment from all of the diversity of the Venice community that came up and spoke and expressed yourself. I'd like now to ask the city attorneys to come on up, and I want to read a couple of statements as they're coming up to give you an appreciation of where we're at and where we're moving. Given that we are essentially creating a pilot program just for CD11, and this program will serve a small, needy population and will be overseen by capable and experienced program administrators, I think there is probably a smarter way to proceed than opening up and amending 8502. Instead, I would ask the city attorney to report back at a future date with a draft standalone ordinance amending the LAMC to say essentially. This is just an essential comment which you would report back. Notwithstanding any other provisions of the LAMC, participants enrolled in the Vehicles to Home Roadmap to Housing program, overseen by Lhasa and managed by PATH, are permitted to sleep legally in certain specific assigned public spaces during certain limited hours only for the duration of their enrollment in the program. I think we want to be clear that the permit is good for one assigned space only, is transferable, is not transferable, obviously, because part of the social intake would be that, is issued or revoked according to program administrators and require participation in case management and adherence to code of conduct as defined by the program. To protect the community and address the concerns we have heard today, I also asked the city attorney to work with my staff to include in the draft ordinance a cap on the number of vehicles per lot or street segment and a suitable buffer zone between parking space and residence. It is the recommendation of me, the chair, that the city attorney be instructed to draft an ordinance allowing people enrolled in the pilot program outlined today to park and sleep legally overnight in designated public spaces during certain limited hours for the duration of their enrollment in the program. I ask that the draft ordinance include a cap on the number of vehicles per lot and a suitable buffer zone for residential areas and other neighborhood protection references here today. I just repeated it again. Okay, would you respond to that and see if this is in the right direction?
Why didn't we start with this so we could have commented on it?
Fine, we'll let you come up and react to it. Fine.
I would like to point out that if a vehicle
Please understand it.
has blankets in it, then it can be cited for lodging. So therefore, because you give somebody an 8-hour period where they may sleep, when they pull back out of your designated spot, they are still open to 8502.
Okay, thank you for the comment from the floor. Okay, I appreciate that. Please.
Thank you, Council Member. We in the City Attorney's Office will work...
Your name for the record.
Oh, my name is Valerie Flores. I'm an Assistant City Attorney, and I'm here with Judith Reel, Deputy City Attorney. We have been working closely with your staff, and we will continue to do so, to develop conditions for the ordinance that make sure that the program, that the exemption is very tailored to the program requirements, and I'm sure that your office will be working with Venice residents to identify appropriate sites. But we will draft an ordinance that will give some flexibility to Lhasa and PATH in their administration of the ordinance, but ensure that current Venice residents, and I do believe some of them were surveyed before the OVO ordinance went into effect, so I did want to make that point. We do think we do have a snapshot of what people were living in their cars in Venice prior to the OVO ordinance going into effect. So one of the programs... One of the ways that we...
get your carrot in place, withdraw your stick.
One of the ways that we will ensure that the program is most effective and doesn't become a draw for other area homeless is to ensure that it'll be...
respectful of human rights. Hold on a second, folks. Respectful of railroading. David, we're not making any decisions here today, so please listen to the interaction and comment, okay? Please. Okay. Thank you.
So that we believe that the program administrator will work to ensure that current Venice residents are the residents that are the vehicle residents are the ones who are eligible for the program. So we'll work with staff to make sure that the ordinance captures all of the limitations that you believe are appropriate to protect the residents and also to make sure the program is most effective for the targeted homeless population.
Did you want to add anything? Name for the record.
Judith Reel, Deputy City Attorney. I just want to add that we would come back to this committee with a draft ordinance after it goes to council and they adopt your recommended request.
And what that point is for all those that did an outcry, what you've just heard is the beginning. This will come back in draft form to this committee. And we're going to do it.
The meeting is coming to a halt. There is not going to be another arrest or another death of a homeless person in Venice in their vehicle until there's a carrot in place. This meeting is at a halt until the arrest in Venice of homeless people with no other place to go comes to a halt. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your comment.
This meeting is adjourned. We will not continue until the arrest in Venice stops. This man is torturing homeless people. He's facilitating a hate campaign. 3 people have died. One of them terrorized that he was going to be arrested by the police. And you know what? Which side am I going to be on? The ones that want to be polite about this or the ones that are going to be arrested? I'm not leaving. This meeting is over.
Okay.
In the name of the people and the homeless in Venice, this meeting is over.
All right, let me just say this.
This meeting is over until the homeless people in Venice have a place to go without going to jail, without having your home taken and being made homeless. This meeting is over.
Okay, folks.
This meeting is over.
This item is over. We have other issues.
Transportation Committee.
We appreciate, Mr. Bush, your comments.
It's enough of the chat. It is enough of policemen like you coming out and telling us at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's my job to torment more people in Venice, to segregate the beach. This is segregation. There's segregation. Bill, you're facilitating. Bill, you are facilitating segregation.
Come back.
The rich and the poor. You want to segregate the beach for the poor. You know what? All of you on this council, help your councilman. He's up against wealthy developers and a well-organized hate campaign. Stop him. Help him. Stop him. He's out of control. Get this out of this committee.
Okay, thank you so much.
Human Rights Committee.
Okay.
No, thank you, Bill. People are dying. People are losing their homes. You are destroying the diverse and the political voices in Venice. This is a political issue.
It will come back to the committee. It's coming back to the committee.
Environmental people who are not service resistant. They're not resistant to shelters. They're resistant to being told that they got to go back into the capitalist system that made them homeless in the first place after they lick their little hindies and say it's all my fault.
Okay, thank you so much.
No,
Please,
thank you, Bill. This meeting's over.
We have other
This meeting's
issues.
over.
We have other issues to discuss.
You're out of order, and you're violating human rights. You're part of an
Okay.
conspiracy with the politicians of this town to violate the human rights of homeless people. No, this meeting is over, and you will stop this.
Okay, thank you.
You're going to put your bodies on the line to protect people, or you're cowards. You're going to put your bodies on the line to stand up for human rights and against developers who are all about money. What are you about? Money or people's lives? What are you about? Freedom or developers' money? This is over.
Okay.
I would have loved to have said more, but Bill Rosendahl, it's all developers, it's all haters, it's all people making a buck off driving people back into capitalism.
Take a break.
It's nothing about the human rights and the nature of Venice. It's about love.
All right, at this point, we're going to take a 3-minute recess, and we will go to the rest.
This meeting is over.
Okay.
This meeting is over. Anybody who continues to participate in this meeting is participating in the cover-up of a hate campaign. I challenge any and every one of you to look at the Ucla website and tell me it's a hate. This isn't a hate campaign. This is the largest hate campaign in America right now against homeless people. You can check with the National Coalition for the Homeless. I'm telling you right now that you
David, chill out.
Or you're a collaborator. You're a collaborator. Politeness is collaboration when people are dying in the streets of L.A. You want to arrest somebody, why don't you arrest the county board of supervisors? By the California State Constitution, they are the legal entity, they are the five people responsible for making sure that every person in this county has a right and respecting place to live and sleep in.
All right, folks. David, come on. We've got other issues to deal with.
You know what? There's no other item on the agenda than human rights, constitution, and the battle for homeless and poor people against greed. Stand or cower. Stand or cower. Is this meeting over? Is this meeting adjourned?
No, we have other agenda items.
I'm not going to finish until the meeting is adjourned. No, I have not made this point.
We have other agenda items.
You know what?
One at a time.
Ask your officer to put the taser away.
Oh, put the taser away. No taser.
Be arrested without being killed.
Yeah, I don't want to stand here. I agree.
Adjourn this meeting. There is no other issue than that. Why don't you all adjourn this meeting on behalf of Bill? He needs some help. Where's the quorum for this transportation committee?
We don't believe in anything but process.
Bill, you believe in talk. You don't believe in action. And you know, your body on the line. You believe in cooperating. Bill, you are cooperating with people who are trying to segregate the beach. You're a modern-day segregationist, an economic segregation. Where are the travelers? All you're talking about here today are homeless people. Where are the travelers who like to go up and down the beach and have a place to stay and can't afford to stay in the rich hotels anymore that you jacked up the price for? When I moved to Venice Beach in 1980, I was a mechanic. I was rich.
Okay, folks.
It is, it's not a
Okay. We're going to go right to the next one. I'm not going to. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're going to continue the meeting at this point, and as I was saying toward the conclusion of special item number 1, this is a work in progress. What you heard here was input from the staff. You heard PATH's program, you heard Lhasa and how it works, and how the VA participates in the process. And the community comments from all points of view were expressed, and this is the first step. There'll be a draft ordinance that will come back. That draft ordinance will have the input of people in the room, and will give you an opportunity to react to the draft ordinance before it becomes permanent. What we will do next with what this is a communication from the chair, since I'm a one-member committee at this point, is move it through the council so that we can quickly come back, so that we can get this program up and running, so we can have an effective from streets to home program going forward. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item.
Item number 2 on the special agenda is the Rosendahl Carets motion instructing DOT to report relative to the implications of a decision made by the LA County MTA Board to remove Comstock Avenue to Selby Avenue segment of the Wilshire Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit Project.
Okay, I just want to start on this item. Let's just take a deep breath, okay, and realize that there are many issues that we all struggle with every day that need to get our focus on. When we talk about the bus-only lane on Wilshire, you all know that I've been a big, strong supporter of bus lanes for quite some time. In fact, I think if we invested more in buses than we have, we'd be in better shape. Buses are the least expensive of a mass modal transportation, and we have streets and we have beautiful weather, so it is something I strongly believe in. There's no question we need substantive transportation reform because of the gridlock that we're in the middle. As I mentioned in the beginning, my conversation with David Dreyer and Measure R, and the commitment the Republicans have, that it's not a Democrat or Republican plan. It is a people's plan. The people in LA County voted yes for this. We put our money where our mouth is, and we're looking for federal support so that we can accelerate these programs over the next 12 years. Bus lanes are part of that program going forward. Enhancing our transit system to reduce travel time and increase reliability is the best thing we can do as a city to get people to shift to public transport, meaning it has to be efficient and effective so people realize they shouldn't be in their car anyhow. They can get to where they need to go in the same amount of time, if not faster, if we move into mass transit. If you build roads for congestion, then off-peak hours you get raceways, and this is not a safe and friendly way to move forward. So at this particular point, I'd like Metro and LADOT to come to the table. I'd like to ask a couple of questions before public comment so you can hear what they have to say. And maybe that last issue, we should have done that before they got up and spoke, but we do the best we can here with where we're at. And if I could read the questions, and if you can quickly answer them, terrific. Then we'll go to a whole stack of public comment cards. So Metro staff has been directed to study a project alternative that wasn't part of the original SEQA analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That we've been asked to study removing the comstock site.
And the reason for the study is because?
Because in order to include this removal of this segment in the environmental document, we need to go back and study it and come back to the Metro Board in April with a revised environmental document.
Okay. But obviously, in a general sense, continuous bus lane projects typically provide the greatest benefit.
Yes, they do.
Yes,
right.
We feel that continuous bus lane is the most beneficial way of operating the bus lanes.
Very good. But the bus lane alternatives you've been asked to study is highly segmented in the west side portion.
Well, with the 1 mile exemption, it does create a hole in the west side, and then we will have bus lane, no bus lane, and bus lane and no bus lane. That's the situation.
And of course, the city of Santa Monica isn't participating at all, is it?
Correct. Yeah.
Would you all please identify your names for the record?
Yeah, I'm Kang Hu, Senior Transportation Engineer with LADOT.
And I'm Brad McAllister, Executive Officer of Long Range Planning at Metro.
Thank you. However, the east side portion of the project includes 5.4 miles of continuous bus lane segment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And there is tremendous support to move that part forward now.
Yeah, we've worked with the communities and then council members. They are in support of that segment of the project strongly. Yes.
Okay, before we go forward any further, I'd like you to move to the side and let me take some public comments first and then continue to come back and react to it, okay? Okay. I have a whole bunch of cards, so once again, I'd like to do it in a minute. Morgan, National Resource Defense Council. Morgan, I can't get the last name. What is that? Nice to meet you. I have Jay Handel. I have Raymond Klein, Ray Klein, better known as Ray Klein, Raymond, Roxanne Stern. Okay, start with those four, and with the next four, Sandy Brown, Mark Dida, Grandma, I can't, oh, great, got your name, and Ronald Collins, okay, you'd be the next four that would come up, and I see that Ray Klein is sitting in seat number 1, so introduce yourself, please.
Raymond Klein, 908 Kenfield, Chair of the Brentwood Community Council. The man from LADOT who was just here, who's the head traffic engineer, testified in front of Metro in December that with the fragmented lanes of the buses in Westwood, it would not work. Those were his words. We agree with that. We are generally in support of mass transit, but we want mass transit that makes sense and works. It doesn't make sense west of Beverly Hills. This project should stop on the east side of Beverly Hills. The traffic maps of LADOT that you can look at in the afternoon between 4 and 6 show that the traffic is red west of the 405 and it turns green or yellow east of the 405. So these people are coming from Santa Monica to the 405, trying to get on the 405 to go home to the valley. They will not take the bus. The idea that having bus lanes here will move people from cars to buses just will not work, because LADOT's real-time traffic maps show where the people are heading between Sentinel and the 405. They're getting on the 405. They're going no further east. So the idea that they will switch people from cars to buses doesn't make sense.
Appreciate that, sir. Yes, Pam, hi.
Actually, I am reading the statement for Roxanne Stern, who's a Westwood resident and was called away suddenly today for a family
Just
illness.
do it for yourself. You can't let you do it for another person.
Okay, my
What's
name
your
is Crystal
sir?
McMillan.
Have you filled out a card?
I can.
Okay, fill it out.
Okay.
When you finish it.
LA is choking with traffic congestion, and everybody knows that. We need a great public transportation system to cut congestion, reduce pollution, and give commuting workers some of their lives back. In 20 or 30 years, after spending many billions, God willing, we'll have a great subway system, but we could have a great bus system in a year or two. The main thing it takes is faster buses along major thoroughfares like Wilshire Boulevard, and that means dedicated bus lanes. Sadly, the MTA board agreed to exclude a small section of the Wilshire Boulevard from the dedicated bus lane because a handful of people who live in the expensive high-rises along Wilshire and West LA think the dedicated lane will inconvenience them. And now that parts of West LA are out, some people in Councilman Rosendahl's district want to exclude Brentwood from the project. If that exclusion is granted, it'll be a final nail in the coffin for faster bus service. I believe it's time for the council to stand up for all the city. And Councilman Rosendahl, please don't allow selfish interests to kill the city's chance for great bus service. Thank you.
Yeah, take your card and put your card in and give it to the city clerk. Thank you. Please, Jay Handel.
Jay Handel, Chair of the West LA Neighborhood Council. Yes, LA does have tremendous congestion. Wilshire, east-west, west-east, nighttime in particular, is a complete gridlock in all three lanes. Taking 33% of the lanes for 5% of the commuters in an area that's going to be a hop, skip, and a jump makes absolutely no sense. So let's go on a positive note. As you know, I've been against the test, the 33 months that we had before, but let's go on a positive note. I've said to you in the past, I've said to you in the last year and a half, you bring me a contiguous bus lane, and I'll support it. Okay, we'll find ways to make it work even with the impacts. But the fact of the matter is, to try and bring a fragmented impact that your own head of engineering tells you is wrong and will not work and will impact the surrounding communities makes no sense. So I'm going to advocate that you go from the border of Beverly Hills on the east side to the furthest point that you'll be allowed to downtown and make it work. And then when you make that work, let's go to the T Committee of Beverly Hills, let's go to the T Committee of Santa Monica, and let's look at the CD5 area and make it a longer, more contiguous ocean to downtown. But let's just not do what we've done in the past and make mistakes.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. If you heard my opening comments, I talked about 5.4 miles that could definitely go forward now. Federal funding could be there for that. It could be called Phase 1 while we're working out the other parts of this project. So it is a contiguous bus-only lane. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Morgan Wyan. I'm an attorney with the NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council. We strongly support the bus-only lane. This project is needed to prioritize the bus system over cars and incentivize a switch from cars to buses for an increased number of commuters. Cutting chunks out of the project greatly reduces the bus-only lane's benefits. We urge the council to move forward with the bus-only lane without any exemptions, and we believe in time all the communities along Wilshire will see that this is an important step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate if you go to Santa Monica and talk to them, too. I'd be grateful for that. We have Sandy Brown here. Mark Dida. Is that Mark? Do we have Grandma there? Come on up. We're looking forward to you coming up. Okay, and how about Ronald Collins? Okay, great. Somebody help Grandma walk her up.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandy Brown, and I'm with the Westwood Coalition, representing over 10,000 residents of Westwood. There are 13 high-rise buildings, all of the homeowner associations, Westwood Community Council, and Westwood Neighborhood Council. We did get support from the MTA to remove the comstock to Selby segment, and it was based upon a study by Raju Associates that we hired, who determined that including this segment in the Wilshire corridor bus-only lane would not improve bus ridership and would certainly not save any time in the process. We also have in our area 56 driveways, 5 loading zones, and only 1 rapid transit stop, which means that the rapid buses will be riding in the mixed flow lane in order to bypass the local buses. So the traffic would be backed up, and the studies, which I think you all have a copy of, indicate such. So I would just ask you for that support as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mark, for the record.
Yeah, Mark Didia. First, I want to thank the Bus Riders Union and for the great things they're doing by taking alternate transportation. I think the flip side to the previous person's comments is that I'm a car-free parent by choice. I have an 8-year-old. He loves this city. He has fun in this city, and he wants to, we want to get around the city safely. We want alternate means. You went to the bike summit and you're very passionate about the future of LA, its health, its safety, communities. Stepping back from this expansion, in my opinion, is not compatible with that vision. And I think if you just look at the ratio between the people who are served by the bus-only lane and the diversity, the public element to it, compared to those who are worried about their driveways and their particular housing units, then this is a no-brainer in the context of promoting community and the future of LA. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Grandma.
저는 시의원님께서 8.7마일이 되는 윌시어 보스 전용 차선을 실행해 주시기를 아주 부탁드립니다.
So I'm asking that the Transportation Committee and Councilmember Rosendahl that you fulfill the promise to implement the full 8.7 miles of the Wilshire bus only lane.
버스 승객들의 이동 시간을 절약과 더 많은 사람이 대중교통을 이용하게 하려면 전용 차선은 한인타운 메가도팍 지역뿐만 아니라 서부 LA 지역에도 운행이 돼야 합니다.
As proposed in the EIR, we need to take advantage, we need to get the full benefits of the bus-only lane by implementing fully, not only in Koreatown, MacArthur Park, Mid-City area, but the west of West LA should also be operating this bus-only lane. We need 1 more minute of translation.
이 버스 전용 차선은 우리 2세들에게 좋은 환경을 물려주기 위한 실행해야 합니다. 시의회는 몇몇 백인 주민들에게만 의견만 기울이지 마시고 9만 명이 넘는 버스 승객들과 대기 오염에서 시달리는 소수의 민족들의 삶을 향상시키는데 힘을 써 주셔야 합니다.
통역할게요, 할머니.
어느 지형을
This bus-only lane is necessary for us to pass down a better environment for the next generation. The city council and council members should not just be biased towards a few especially very white, middle-class residents, but also think about the interest of over 90,000 bus riders who are in the city and who are using the Wilshire corridor, and also to think about those very people, poor folks, and especially people of communities of color that are living in air-polluted areas. And it's really about, we need you to also stand to improve the lives of our folks as well.
어느 지역을 제외하지 마시고 지난 6년간 약속한 대로 저희들하고 약속하신 대로 전 8.7마일 전용 차선을 지지해 주시기를 간절히 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
So I ask that there be no exemptions, and that as you promised for the last 6 years in your leadership, to implement a full bus-only lane throughout the city jurisdiction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for the record, it's not a white situation here. It's multicultural, multi-religious, and multi-ethnically, and I just wanted to, on the record, make that
I mean, the
point.
majority of the people opposing it, council member, we have to say.
Well,
There's a demographic map on
I
it if you want
understand,
us.
but I just wanted to be clear about that. Ronald, you're here. Could we ask Allison Manos to come on up, and Herbie Huff, and Channy Martinez as well? Sir, you're up.
Hello, my name is Ronald Collins. I'm a community college student and an environmental justice advocate. I'm here to urge the City Council to adopt Alternative A, the original 8.7-mile Wilshire bus-only lane project, without any west side exemption, including rejecting the MTA Board's short-sighted exemption of the Condo Canyon area. I just came back from participating in the UN Climate Conference in Mexico and learned just how serious the impacts of the global climate crisis are for people around the world and my community here in Los Angeles. Entire communities are losing their agricultural lands, suffering from famine and water shortages. LA is not an exception, as one freak weather occurrence after another, heat waves and cold fronts that leave those with the least resources, black and brown communities and elderly, at risk of death. By proposing the West Side exemption, essentially what you're saying is that our city is okay with placating to a few narrow self-interests at the expense of progress for the entire city. This project is the first step in actively helping to reduce auto emissions in the car capital of the world. True environmental leadership means taking the necessary steps to ensure that our city take every measure possible to move us towards sustainability. By allowing the exemption, you're not only shortchanging the people of Los Angeles, but the people of the world who look to this city to reduce emissions, not because it's popular, but because it's ecologically necessary. We need politics based on the reality of what we are facing, not based on short-sightedness. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments, sir. And I had mentioned Allison Manos, Herbie Huff, Channing Martinez, Rosa Miranda, M-I-R-A-N-D, Miranda. Sorry about that. Come on up. Let's just start with you, sir.
Hi, my name is Channing Martinez. I'm a student at Otis College of Art and Design and a member of the Bus Riders Union. I've helped to work on the campaign for a bus-only lane for 3 years of the 6 years that the Bus Riders Union has worked on the campaign. Mr. Rosendahl, you've heard on numerous occasions the benefits of creating the first bus-only lane on Wilshire, the most used public transit line in the country. You are well aware of the fact that a bus-only lane is just one step towards creating a city that uses less carbon emissions. That is opposed to building more rail lines that produce hundreds of tons of carbon emissions through the construction of just one station. Here, we have funding already set aside and allocated for this project. MTA's EIR reports many benefits for this project, and yet you stand here today attempting to remove your district from the project, a move that will easily create an incentive for federal funding to be stripped away from the project. And on what basis do you do this? For wealthier residents in your community who refuse to get out of their cars, even if that means saving the earth from global warming, a problem that we've created. Councilmember Rosendahl, I question your legitimacy today as an environmentalist and a transit leader. Are you going to stand for short-term, self-interested residents today, or are you going to stand for what is necessary for a healthier world? I urge you to propose the approval of Alternative A, the full 8.7 bus only lane.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Please, hi.
I'm Herbie Huff. I represent the Bicycle Coalition at UCLA. About a year ago, at a bike plan hearing, you asked me to serve as a liaison between UCLA and the city. I'm here to fulfill that charge, and I'm bearing a clear message. Cutting this project down to a so-called Phase 1 that does not even reach UCLA is not in the best interest of UCLA bicyclists or bus riders. Fundamentally, this bus-only lane is about the fairest use of our public streets. Should we keep using all of that public space to move cars? What would be a fair portion to set aside for other modes in the west side? What would be a fair portion for walking, for biking, for transit? And on this corridor, where over half of the travelers are in buses, it's only fair to set aside one lane during the peak hours in each direction so that buses can move without being delayed by car congestion. Now, people are saying that incomplete bus lanes don't make sense. And the answer to that is to fight the 1 mile exemption between Comstock and Selby, not to cut more out of the project, protect the entire project. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate your comments. Ma'am, in the yellow, please. Your name?
I'm translating for her. My
Who
name
you are?
is Estelle.
Okay, and your name, ma'am?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosa Miranda y soy miembro del Sindicato de Pasajeros.
Good afternoon, my name is Rosa Miranda and I'm a member of the Bus Riders Union.
Esta tarde estoy aquí para pedir a este comité que no apruebe más recortes en el proyecto de carril solo para autobuses de la Wilshire y ustedes pueden retar la alternativa de la MTA y aprobar en su totalidad el 8.7 millas.
This afternoon I'm here to ask the committee not to approve the cuts for the bus-only lane project. And I know that you can challenge the alternative by the MTA and approve the totality of 8.7 miles project.
Quiero platicarles a lo que se enfrentan las madres con un hijo con asma como yo. A mi hijo, en el verano regularmente estamos una vez al mes en una sala de emergencia del hospital porque tiene un ataque de asma. Para mí como madre siento tanto frustramiento porque para mi hijo los minutos valen mucho. Es la vida o la muerte. La razón principal es la mala calidad del aire.
I'm here to tell you about the struggles that mothers that have kids with asthma go through. I have a son, regularly in the summer, he's hospitalized at least once, and he gets asthma attacks. I am a mother and I feel the frustration because my son, for my son every minute, it's important, and it can be the difference between life and death. The principal reason why he has asthma is because of the conditions of the air quality in the city.
La ansiedad que vivo no tiene precio y los intereses de unos pocos autos no pueden estar sobre los intereses sobre los miles de pasajeros. Y esta ciudad tiene un verdadero proyecto para remediar el congestionamiento y reducir la contaminación. Esta ciudad no puede seguir con las malas políticas que siguen priorizando el auto y no pueden seguir con el racismo medioambiental.
The anxiety that I go through has no price, and I believe that the city cannot continue pushing the interest of a few over the interest of the many passengers in the city. This city really needs to step up and remedy the bad policies that keep, we can't afford the traffic congestion in the city. And we can also, you need to also look at the bad policies that are continuing this problem of environmental racism.
Concejal Rosendahl, ha sido usted el principal apoyante en tener este proyecto finalizado en su totalidad. Es por eso que queremos políticos como usted, que se mantengan fieles y firmes en su liderazgo sin cambiar su postura inicial.
Councilor Rosendahl, you've been one of the supporters of this project, and now it's been finalized. And we need more politicians like you to stay, on your feet in this issue and stay firm on the decision of protecting this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Gracias. Appreciate it. Allison Manos, is Allison here? Oh, she left? Okay. Okay, and then I have Eric Roman. Okay, Eric, and then I have Sonia Young. There she is. Okay, I got Rye, is that Rye? Or is he gone? Well, if he comes back, let us know, because I'm going to put the card right here for that. Alex Lance. Alex? And then I have Sonia Norman.
Sonista Norman.
Pardon me?
Sonista Norman.
Okay, great. Okay.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Rosendahl.
Why don't you start with her first? I'll go
sure.
left to right. Okay.
Okay. So my name is Sun Young Yang with the Bus Riders Union. I'm just going to give you a few statistics. Seoul has 231 miles of bus-only lane. Bogota, Colombia, 54 miles. Paris, 118 miles. London, 49 miles of bus lane. And Sao Paulo, 96 miles of bus lane. These are, some developed countries and developing countries, and in between countries, they've all implemented major bus-only lanes throughout their metropolis 10 years ago. So what is the political hang-up? We had to fight every inch of the way in the last 6 years of the struggle. Mr. Rosendahl, we're talking about 90,000 bus riders, the interest of 90,000 bus riders. There's 80,000 vehicles in Wilshire Boulevard. If we continue the way in terms of giving most of the streets prioritized for single passenger auto, the bus system is going to get worse. We're going to start losing, people using transit. And actually, imagine if the 90,000 bus riders actually got off their bus and started driving. Like, these bus riders deserve already. They're doing a lot, not contributing to traffic. And let me tell you, this essentially is a multiracial battle, right? Our front is multiracial. There's UCLA students, there's LA County Bicycle Coalition, there's Koreatown Immigrant Workers Alliance, there's Bus Riders Union, there's NRDC, who's saying that we need a real political leadership and environmental leadership and take the step. And the folks who are opposing it, I'm sorry, realistically, if you look at a demographic map, most of them are white, make upwards of 6-digit salaries. And so this is, ultimately, this decision is around, a class and race struggle. And at the end of the day, Councilmember Rosendahl, I know you have strong environmental leadership. If you allow further exemptions to happen, this is just going to unravel the project. This is a 5-mile project is a slap in the face to the bus riders. We can't go to Beverly Hills nor Santa Monica to tell them to get on if the city is already chipping away in its own jurisdiction the bus-only lane. So I really urge you to stay with the commitment of going with the entire bus-only lane project as recommended in MTA's EIR for Alternative A, 8.7 miles, not 5 miles. When we started this project, the funding that we asked for the federal government was a 10-mile project. Now we're whittling it down to 5 miles. That is pretty much, it shows to the federal government that LA City doesn't have our things together. And I think it sets a really bad precedent for other funding for other future transportation projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask staff to respond to some of these questions at the right time. Sir, your name?
Yeah, so I'm Eric Roman. I'm also with the Bus Riders Union. Like my colleague said, we're on the cusp of a major breakthrough here, right? But we have a small group of car drivers here, residents of the West Side, who want to keep us in the 20th century where cars got in LA, right? A large coalition is calling for a complete bus-only lane 9 miles, right? Staff of LADOT and MTA have been very thorough, right? 2 EIRs, countless public scoping meetings, countless public comment received, and also a very thorough study 2 different times, right? Martha Butler of MTA staff told me that they identified 74 intersections that were potential problems, right? None of the intersections that the Brentwood people are raising are even in that 74. Of the 74, 19 were identified as potential problems, right? None of those 19 are in the comstock, the Selby section, right? So we have people raising objections to this project without any technical basis, according to the studies that have been done by the staff of both LADOT and MTA, right? So let's be honest. Supervisor Yaroslavsky opened a Pandora's box, because what he did was he conceded to Condo Canyon without them having any legitimate technical basis for their arguments, right? He created a problem for you. But there's another problem. The problem is that yesterday I spoke to an official from the Federal Transit Administration, right? And there is the possibility that if the city and the county don't get their act together and really stick to what they promised, right, you could jeopardize this entire project, right? 5.5, we're not talking about phase one, right? You have the money already promised by the federal government for a 9-mile project. You have what should be considered a lawsuit-proof EIR. If they want to sue, let them sue. But the staff of MTA and LODOT have done their job, and we believe that they fully comply with CEQA, right? So at the end of the day, we're asking you to stand up to these people, stick to the position that you've stuck with for a long time, right? Don't let these guys twist your words and say, oh, well, we want the full thing or nothing at all, right? And, you know, I mean, they don't want it at all, right? And they're never going to allow it through the west side if we don't push for it right now. We have the funding, we have the EIR, everything is in place to do the full project. Let's not give in to these people who have no argument. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Alexis Lance, Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I'm here today, along with many of my community members, to ask for your support, Councilmember Rosendahl, and your leadership. Transit users and cyclists need you and the other members of your committee to provide a complete Wilshire bus-only lane project. You've been a leader for bicycle issues, sustainable transportation, and recently been named Streets Blog Politician of the Year. Please live up to this award and your promises that you've made by providing a project that will enhance and improve the mobility of transit users and cyclists. There are more people traveling this corridor by transit compared to people by car. Additionally, this project will not only provide better mobility for cyclists and transit riders, but DOT and Metro are planning on providing benefits to vehicle users as well. If a concession needs to be made, we recommend implementing the entire project, but revisiting the Condo Canyon and West Side areas after the project has been implemented to see if the concerns that have been addressed have come to fruition. Please don't not include the portions of this project from the outset. Make it a full project. We need you in the Transportation Committee to lead where the Metro Board has failed. We need you to provide a more sustainable, accessible, dynamic city and transportation system.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, my name is Sonisa Norman, and I am a volunteer member with the Bus Riders Union. You proclaim to be an environmentalist, so I ask you, what are your priorities with the bus-only lane? I know for me, my priorities never changed in the 6 years I have been doing this. You asked for a lot of things for this to happen. You wanted people to support it, and we did that. You wanted businesses' input, and we gave it to you. You say the federal may not give you the money. We have secured $23 million in funding it. You wanted data and backing it, and we had the EIR report. You promised that you would implement the project and agreed that it would be better for the Los Angeles to be green and environment friendly. The proof is in the pudding. I don't remember that part. Okay. You have became a leader that I could hope that no matter what, that would lead in the face of doing what's right. Because you and I know that what the implementation of this will be the good footprint to lead forward to the other generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I have some more cards. Yeah, your name, sir? Ryberg. Come on up. And what about Darren Conley, C-O-N-L-Y? You want to know who that person is? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, let's to that left. We have you. And then last final comment is Dr. Clyde Williams, but I think he's left. Go ahead, sir. You're up.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Ryberg. I'm a member of the UCLA Bicycle Coalition. I ride the bus down Wilshire a lot, and I also ride my bike down the corridor. Riding my bike down the corridor is very dangerous, and I was really looking forward to having this project go through so that I would have a safe route to school and back. I feel very ashamed that the council has allowed this small group of citizens to really take out an important piece of this project, because riding through Condo Canyon is very dangerous. The traffic speeds through there are very high, and when I'm on my bike, I was really hoping to have this bus lane so that I could take the bus faster and also feel safer on my bike. That was all I had to say.
Well, thank you for what you had to say. we have anybody else who has filled out a card that would like to speak on this subject? Could I ask staff to come on back up? Okay, I'm just going to make a little editorial comment at this point. I've always been uneasy with the non-participation of Beverly Hills, and my concerns, of course, also of Santa Monica, which candidly in my district creates 200,000 car trips every day through my district to get to their town. And they have an airport where all takeoffs and all landings go over my folks. So I have a bit of a problem with the non-participation of both Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, and my concern has only grown with the recent decision by the Metro Board. That segment alternative not only diminishes the benefit of having a bus lane, but it's also incredibly confusing to motorists on the road. Confusion on our roadways isn't going to make vehicles, bicycles, or pedestrian travel any safer along the Wilshire corridor, and it certainly isn't going to improve bus speeds. With that, I'd like to recommend that the city affirm the support of a 5.4-mile continuous Wilshire Boulevard peak hour bus lane project between Parkview Street and the east side and the San Vicente on the west. I request that Metro complete the necessary additional environmental review and analysis for a continuous peak hour bus lane project on Wilshire Boulevard between Parkview Street and San Vicente Boulevard. I would also like to note that implementing shorter but significant, that is 5.4 miles, continuous bus lane does not preclude MTA in the city of Los Angeles from adding additional bus lanes in the future. In fact, I envision this as phase one of the project, which will inform our decisions as we move this project westward, including the city of Beverly Hills. I recommend that the city affirm support of the 5.4 miles continuous peak hour project between Parkview West at the east and San Vicente on the west. I request that the Metro complete the necessary additional environmental review and analysis for a continuous peak hour bus lane on Wilshire Boulevard between Parkview Streets and San Vicente Boulevard. Now, staff, would you explain to me and react to what you heard here, comments from the public? I have several large concerns. One, will this jeopardize in any way the federal funding? Because this did come out of a process that we were not part of, that some of the bus riders talked about at the MTA board. And secondly, what about looking at the remaining part from the sea, as far as I'm concerned, which is Santa Monica, and then from, in my district, from the Centinela to the 405, and what about how we go forward with this? I just want a reaction in part, and then also I want you to move forward with it. Please. Again, your name for the record.
Kang Hu, LADOT. We were just talking about phasing the project, making a phase one and phase two. That's certainly a consideration. That could be an option. But then in terms of environmental clearance, we need to clear the project entirely. And then we also need to work with FTA, Federal Transit Administration, to see whether they will allow us to phase the project into two parts. And Brad, if you want to add to that, yeah.
Your name for the record. I'm sorry. I'm Brad McAllister, Executive Officer, Long Range Planning at Metro. I think what we would do if City Council approves this motion, this would come back to the Metro Board to authorize staff to look at this as an alternative in the environmental document. Our schedule is to come back to the Metro Board in April to review any additional alternatives and to make an approval of the environmental document. And then this will come to City Council to also approve once the Metro Board has taken action. FTA actually approves last, so they look to the local action of Metro and the City Council and what project is approved, and they'll make an approval. But we work with them day in and day out, and if we have if we're hearing concerns from them about any anything might jeopardize the project, we would notify both the Metro Board and City Council as soon as we hear that. So we won't have a final answer on it. It is a change in the project, but we would work closely with the board, with FTA, as we do day in and day out.
All right, anybody else want to comment on the public comments that we heard? Anybody want to comment on anything else on this at this point? Well, let me just say from the beginning, I've been for a bus-only lane, and that's why when I first came to the council, I took a very strong position on it. Before the MTA board meeting, I spoke with members of the MTA board in a very strong and direct way about wanting a continuous bus-only lane. I'm one person in the mix of the politics of this region, and especially when I talk about the region, I mean the county as well. And I have colleagues with issues and with situations that matter. So where I came from after I heard what Metro was moving on and doing was, let's at least get that 5.4 miles going now. Let's not jeopardize that phase. I've talked to my other colleagues that are from the Beverly Hills to downtown. From my perspective, this does not preclude that as time goes on, that we could make a continuous bus lane. And as Mr. Jay Handel had said earlier, that he is more than willing to work hard on Santa Monica and Beverly Hills and others. If we can build that in such a way, we'll see how it goes. The arguments that have been made about that section, that 1 mile there, in Westwood, I can't comment on because it is not part of my area, and I had no input on that process. But I can tell you that some folks within that study, that was an independent study done, truly pointed out in that study that they did not think this would jeopardize a bus in any time factor whatsoever because it is a large extension, but that the condo people had concerns about getting in and out of their condos. I'm not going to say anything more about that because it is not for me at this point to say it. But I don't want to jeopardize the monies, and I don't want to jeopardize part of the project, and I certainly don't want to jeopardize the whole concept of where we go for it.
Ask the staff, does the staff actually address both the Brentwood and the Westwood concerns in the EIR?
Yeah, what I'd like at last comment, if staff can do this, that was a comment made by that gentleman that staff had said this, that, and the other, and anecdotally, I just heard from him. Do you want to comment on it, or just leave that alone at this point? It's up to you. I understand. I understand.
Well, maybe just to say that as part of the Metro Board motion, in addition to the removal of the Condo Canyon, the Metro Board asked us to look at the time delay along the whole corridor for autos, and I think that was one of the concerns, and so that is part of what we'll report back on in April as well, just a time delay, potential time delay of congestion because of the bus lane.
And I also want to clarify that I was quoted as saying that with the 1 mile exemption, the bus lane would not work. That's not what I said. We want to have continuous bus lane, but if the 1 mile exemption is a reality or is a decision made by MTA board or other decision makers, we want as much bus lane as possible. So even with the 1 mile exemption, it creates an undesirable condition, and that is the reason why we were opposed to the 1 mile exemption. But if that's reality, we would take other segments of the bus lanes and just make it work. It will work. It's just that it will create a little bit operational issue, but that can be overcome, and the bus benefit will still be there with the remaining of the west side.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Staff, what do I do? Just move this to council now?
With the recommendations that you made, yes.
Pardon me?
With the two directions that you made, yes.
Yes. Okay,
Now
so
go
then
to
we will
council.
move it to council with those two directions. Thank you all for that as well. Thank you. Any other items on the agenda? Okay. Once again, I want to apologize that I'm a committee of one, and that this will all go to the full council for further action. Since there's no other public comment, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.